Siomra
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sure Look, Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure Look, Sure Listen.
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 Sure look, sure listen. I've been doing a little bit of mime there, Benjamin, because I've heard you say that so many times now. I do a little mime along with it. But sure look, we don't have time to get into who's miming and who isn't, because we've got a real variety of stuff to look at today, including a trailer, I think, for Doom the Dark Ages, which is a video game that you know more about than me, which is deeply upsetting. Speaking of games, though, Benjamin, we've also had a trailer for the Killers game, another film in the Everyone is Assassins genre, and we had a trailer for Venom, what's it called? The last one?
The Last Dance, Michael.
The Last Dance, Venom the Last Dance. And we had a proper trailer for Alien Romulus, which is a little bit more about what's going on rather than look at the mood of this thing we've made. You've seen, but I haven't, Scavenger's Reign on Netflix, and I've read, but you haven't, The Ultimates Issue 1.
Very good, Michael. Sure, listen, if that wasn't enough, Michael, this September, you and I are going to stop saying things in triplicate, because if we don't, we'll be bio-exercised out of the place.
Oh no, that sounds unfortunate.
Michael, we're getting a sequel nearly 40 years later.
36.
Over
yeah,
40 years. It's
no,
88, actually.
88,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
over, isn't it?
No,
Yeah,
88 isn't more
No,
than
it's
40
not.
years ago, Ben. It's 36 years ago,
No.
isn't it?
36 years ago, Michael.
yeah.
Older than myself. Older than myself. Not by much, Michael.
No.
But by enough
Enough.
that I feel smug and confident.
Hmm.
And Michael, the reason we're doing our Beetlejuice Exhumed episode this week is because I saw promotional material that had the date in American order as opposed to good old-fashioned and sensible European order, whereupon it's day, month, year, as opposed to month, day, year.
Ridiculous.
Like some kind of lunatic.
Absolute insanity.
Um,
Put the middle one first for some reason, guys.
And I mistakenly thought that Beetlejuice was out yesterday.
Oh, no, it's not. No,
it's not out till September.
Not for several months yet, Benjamin. But sure, look, while we sit here twiddling our ectoplasmic thumbs waiting for Beetlejuice to come out, you've got news for us about Doom. Dr. Doom, is it?
It's not Doctor Doom, Michael. It's the hit 80s game, Doom, where you are an unfortunate marine from Earth who's been transported to hell.
Oh, no. Doom came out in 1993, Benjamin. So I'm just going to pull you up straight away on that.
Look at that casual slap. Very good.
Get
Very
back in your
nice.
bin. Get back in it.
Back in your bin, you chronologically addled son of a bitch.
Chronologically challenged. That's a good way of describing you.
Yeah, that's fairly on the money. Michael, as I was saying accurately, Doom came out in the 90s.
Yeah, it did. Famously.
And it features you as an unnamed space marine, essentially, Michael, who was trapped on Mars. And in the original games, Michael, we weren't sure if we were on Mars and we'd opened a portal and they were all spilling out. And then in other games, Michael, we were transported to hell, and that's how it went. But in recent years, Michael, we've whittled that down to the fine Doom lore we enjoy today. And it's centered around the adventures of Doomguy, the ultimate slayer of hellish beasts.
Now, Benjamin, when you said you meant you as in the player, not me specifically.
Yeah, not you specifically, Michael, though I have seen you dress in styrofoam armour and flex in the mirror and say, I'm Doomguy, prepare to die.
Prepare to die. I just actually don't say anything. I just grunt.
Yes, because that's what Doomguy would do. But Michael, it was
What?
the Xbox Fan Fest this weekend.
Oh, that sounds suspiciously like it could be dirty, but it isn't.
It isn't at all. It's very normal. It was essentially a gaming festival, Michael, where we got a little bit of a what's to watch. And, what should we be paying attention to in the gaming over the next couple of years? And one of the big ones to come out, Michael, was Doom.
Everybody loved Doom Eternal from a few years ago. It revitalized the boomer shooter genre.
Well, Michael, in a fun little spin on that, what we're getting is Doom the Dark Ages, a medieval-themed Doom.
That's called Hexen, then. I played that in the 90s.
Yes, well, they've only gone and bloody done it, Michael, and put
Oh.
Doomguy in the past. So
Have they?
what we're seeing, Michael, from this is very similar to the gameplay that we previously had, but this time Doomguy gets a shield, Michael.
A bloody shield of all things.
Now, Michael, the comments before they finished watching on the lives was very funny, Michael. Because what happened was everybody was there going, Doomguy wouldn't use a shield. Sorry, actually, Doomguy wouldn't use a shield. Sorry,
Ben,
Doomguy wouldn't use a shield.
Your absolute disdain for the type of people who listen to this kind of podcast just never ceases to amaze me.
Do you know what? Do you know what never ceases to amaze me, Michael?
Go on.
They keep listening.
I think it's
You
just
love it, you
clickbait. Ben.
slags.
It's just clickbait.
But Michael, the best part happened was, so he straps the shield on from the first person view and everyone was like, oh, he wouldn't use a shield. And then it sprouts teeth and it turns out it's an offensive weapon that he can chuck at people. And everyone was like, that's why Doomguy
Oh,
has a
he
shield.
would use a shield, actually, as long as it was a chainsaw shield.
That's essentially what it is. So that Michael, I thought was peak for me. I was like, yes, it's chainsaw shield. The only thing missing from the Warhammer 40k universe.
Yeah. Ben, I was just thinking the Warhammer men must be over there in Warhammer land gone. How did we not think of this?
Son of
it. Some of you are fired. Who never thought of putting a chainsaw on the shield?
But Michael, the opposite to people being fired is the second weapon they debuted from this, which is a crossbow, Michael,
Oh, yeah.
that utilizes the skulls of enemies you'd vanquish, feeds them through a chipper relay on the kind of stock of the crossbow, and turns it into splinters that you pelt at enemies and shred them to bits with.
Oh, that's exciting, isn't it? That's good.
To which the Warhammer lads were like, Jesus Christ, they're murderers.
Yeah. How did no one think of skull splinters? Now, there are weapons in Warhammer called splinter pistols, and they're made of wraith bone, and it's a bony material. So that's not quite as... How did we not think of that?
Michael,
What?
do you get the satisfaction of watching a small bone grinder wind on the back of the thing
No.
as you strap skulls
No,
in
that's
and watch
great.
it chip them up?
Fabulous, Benjamin. Can't
Fabulous
wait to
stuff.
not play this.
Yeah, great stuff all together. Michael, speaking of killing people in creative and unusual ways, we got a John Wick Light trailer this week.
I thought we had passed through the era of everyone's assassins. But I tell you what, we haven't, because everyone's still assassins. They should have called this The Killer's Game, open brackets, everyone's still assassins, closed brackets.
Everyone's Still Assassins, starring Dave Bautista.
Benjamin,
Yeah.
this trailer stars Dave Bautista as an assassin who finds out that he is a terminal disease and therefore puts a hit on himself so he doesn't go out like a little bitch. But the trailer commits the worst and most heinous crime of modern trailers. It spoils the flippin' twist. In the trailer,
Gives it away.
gives away its twist. Have trailer makers and film studio executives so little confidence in their product and their stars and their marketing team that they go, fuck, we better put it in the trailer that it's a false alarm, or else people might not watch it because they won't want to watch it if it's just assassins. They'll have to know that it's a false alarm or else they won't watch.
Yeah, it really bothered me. It's like, why did you do that? Because they don't even do it with a bit of a clever kind of twist at the end of the trailer to make us go, oh, how's
Nope.
that going to turn out? They do it midway and then they
Midway.
just keep showing us what happened.
Yeah, it's just, here's the microcosm of the film. He meets a girl,
Oh.
he falls in love, he is an assassin, he gets a terminal disease, he puts a hit on himself with someone who doesn't like him. They all come to try and kill him. He doesn't give up like a little bitch though, he fights them. Then he finds out he's fine, he calls to call off the hit, they say no, and they keep sending people after them and he kills them all. They're a flipping film for you.
Yeah, there it is. We did it. It's
Say,
done.
We did it. And it's Mantis versus Drax, Benjamin. They're finally getting to fight each other again.
Yeah, so Pom Klementov is in this. It's a bit of a who's who, in fairness, of action heroes. There's a lot of John Wick alumni in there.
Was Pom
Um,
Klementieff in John Wick?
She wasn't, no, but there are other people that are in there. A good few of the nameless assassins are classic kind of alumni joining from the John Wick cast. I'm trying to find his name here. Scott Adkins is in it. He's pretty
Ah.
huge.
He's great for being an assassin. I think everyone in this has been an assassin in something else. Dave Bautista was an assassin in James Bond.
Yeah.
Pom Klementieff was an assassin in Mission Impossible. Sofia Boutella was an assassin in Kingsmen.
Yes, she was. She had Dancy Blades.
She had Dancy Blades, and for a long time I thought she was an actual amputee. I think
Me too.
practically everyone in this has played a main character assassin or a main villain assassin at some point or another in their career.
Yeah.
On purpose, Benjamin, or just everyone's assassins?
I think 100% on purpose, but I also think it's probably people that Dave
Yes.
Bautista knows personally quite well.
Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, look, Dave Bautista. I love Dave Bautista. I think Dave Bautista's great.
What a
the more
great
Dave
hairline. What a great hairline for a man approaching 60.
For a man approaching 60. What a great physique for a man approaching 60. He's just great. I love Dave Bautista. I unashamedly, and I'm not being ironic, I'm not being funny, I really enjoy watching Dave Bautista in anything he's in. I think he's a solid performer. I think his range is unreal. Ever since, because I wasn't that familiar with his work, and Drax doesn't give him a lot of room to maneuver, so to speak, in terms of range. But ever since I saw him in the short for Blade Runner 2049, Michael, I just went, fuck me, this lad's good.
That wasn't
like
a short,
this.
Benjamin. That was a scene in the film.
Yeah, he was also in a short, though.
Was he in a
promoting
short?
Yes, there was a series of 3 shorts done to promote the film.
No, there weren't. I would have known about that.
No, you wouldn't, Michael. You wouldn't. They kept it pure Cune.
Did they
As
keep
the
it
fella
pure
would say.
cuteness?
Yeah.
Gone down to our bit, did they say? Jesus,
Yeah.
I've never heard.
But yeah, so they did a few of those. Michael, it's going to be fun. If anything, the thing I think might be a breath of fresh air about it is that it's not taking itself nearly as seriously about everyone being assassins as John Wick.
Yeah, but how many films are everyone's assassins? There's every possible tone you could ever imagine for films where everyone's assassins. Did you watch Boy Kills World?
No, I refused, Michael.
Based on what?
Nothing, actually. I just didn't get around to
Oh.
watching it.
Oh, okay, that's different from refusing. I love the idea of you going, no, I'm not watching it. I'm not watching that film. I refuse.
That'd be quite good.
Yeah.
That's what I do every week for this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. He just doesn't listen.
Big old classics
Um,
drop. Benjamin.
Yeah.
Speaking, though, of breathing fresh life into tired franchises, got a trailer
Yes.
for Venom there. Oh,
Michael,
go on.
Michael. If you enjoy
Yeah.
your pop culture news coming a week late
Oh,
and
great stuff.
out of date,
Great stuff.
you might be a fan of this podcast. And you know what you could do if you're a fan of this podcast, Michael?
Well, not listen to it because we clearly hated the listeners.
We hate the listeners. But for the ones that we don't hate, that's you, listener, who's listening to this right now.
Yeah,
You're the special one.
that
We
specific
don't hate
one, yeah.
you. And because you're our special fan,
Yeah.
our special boy, or
Gross.
I'm not going to say special girl because I feel like that'll be clipped out of
No, do.
context.
Do
But-
clip it. Do say it.
Our special girl.
Oh.
If you could just go and give us a review wherever you listen, that'd be fucking fab.
Great stuff
Um,
altogether.
We'd love that all together now. Ladies and gentlemen, go and give us a review wherever you listen. It helps the podcast out massively. And it keeps us in the game. Now, to be honest with you, we'll probably still be here next week if you don't give us a
Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
And the week after that. And the week after that. Because, fuck me, Glutton for Punishment has nothing on us, kid.
Nothing. It's like Sisyphus, man. Pushing a podcast up a hill every week.
A giant microphone up a hill. Yeah.
And then watching it just roll back down on top of him. Speaking, Benjamin, of a Sisyphean task, one of my favourite things about the Venom series is how in every movie, Venom, the character Venom, fights some sort of big, tentacly, mushy monster.
Michael, this is an uphill battle because Venom 1 was inexplicably a hit in China because Chinese grand
bunch of lads, famously, yeah.
Grand bunch of lads. And we went through that phase maybe 10 years ago now, Michael, where the Chinese were just a grand bunch of lads and everything. Great lads. That did well, and it gave them enough confidence, Michael, to go, yeah, a sequel will be grand. Let's do that. And I have to say, the sequel to this was awful. Carnage Unleashed, is that what it was called? Let There Be Carnage?
Let there be carnage. There will be carnage.
There Will Be Carnage. Something of that sort, Michael. Not a good film. A waste of Woody Harrelson, I would say. And a missed opportunity in playing with some of the absolutely mental lore of symbiotes and their offspring within the Marvel Universe. But this, Michael, looks to be, as the title might suggest, The Last Dance. This looks to be them going all out. It looks like we're going to get some weird symbiote lore.
It looks like we're going to get the home planet lore. Now, Benjamin, the home planet lore in the comics is buck wild.
What, Michael? Clintar.
The planet Clintar, Benjamin, where alien symbiotes are the whole planet and also gods, and also the first and most powerful gods, and mental. It's comic book excess personified.
Michael, in the best way, to chart the lore they've created around this. So a lot of this was expanded on based on Jason Aaron's run on Thor, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
He introduced the God Butcher and the Necro Sword, right?
Go on. I'd love to hear
The
more.
Necro Sword was grand. That's fine. That's a classic bit of comic booking. A weird weapon from the beginning of time that warps the welder and can take on gods. Fair enough. Grand. Great MacGuffin. Chuck it in there. Let's see what we can do with that. Then we got Gore the God Butcher, famously played by Christian Bale in an awful movie called Love and Thunder.
Yeah, that wasn't great.
That wasn't great. But Michael, then Donny Cates. Donny Cates he took a look at what Grant Morrison did with the X-Men and with all kinds of obscure Batman retro stuff. And when Grant Morrison gets his hands on a run, Michael, he'll go through the fucking mental back issues from the 60s and the 70s, the Silver Age, and he'll cherry pick the oddest fucking bits of it, and he'll weave them into a new narrative, and he'll infuse it with a postmodern cynical view, and he'll turn it into a serious fucking threat that you never saw coming. Another guy who does that remarkably well for Marvel is Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah. Where are we going with this?
Yes.
Yes.
Donny Cates seems to that he can do that. But Michael.
Just make it mental.
Because Donny Cates just makes shit up and retcons it into his stories. So you're there going, what? So it turns out that the Necro Sword, Michael, is actually a weapon from Null, god of symbiotes,
Yeah.
who is a god from the beginning of time. And it turns out, Michael, we got some expansion on the Venomverse and Clintar, but then it turns out that Clintar means cage in symbiote language,
Uh-oh.
and they're all keeping Null in his place.
Uh-oh. They were null symbiote cage gods the whole time. Mental. It started also part of the trend of everything is Venoms.
Everything is Venoms. Everything is Venoms.
Everyone's Venoms all of a sudden.
Everyone's Venoms all of a sudden. This happens every couple of years in comics, Michael. We can't really bash this so much. We got it years ago.
Hold on a second there. Yes, we can.
No, we fucking will. But we get these kind of waves, Michael, of, I suppose you'd call them, is it variant art opportunities? I never know how to class these kinds of things. The last one I can remember previous to the whole Venom saga is the Hulk one, where we got like a red Hulk, a blue Hulk, a grey Hulk.
Everyone is Hulks.
Yeah. And then everyone is Hulks, because we got Wolverine Hulk, we got Deadpool Hulk, everyone is Hulks. Then we got everyone is symbiotes, and everyone is symbiotes has lasted a long time.
Everyone is flipping symbiotes all the flipping time.
So it all culminated in Null coming to Earth and Eddie Brock's Venom fighting it off in the end. And then it turns out, and spoilers for a 2020 run of comics, turns out that Eddie Brock became the god of symbiotes from that point on.
Everyone's the god of symbiotes, Ben.
It's one of the messier, slightly more convoluted mass crossover events in Marvel in recent history. Just didn't turn out great for them. And it really lost its own steam. And it started out quite well, Michael. There were cosmic horror elements to this in the beginning. Null was known as the King in Black, and the King in Black would come and sweep. There was some nice Victorian horror elements brought in, and then it was just like, nah, he's just a big scary god of symbiotes. But
Big
Michael,
scary god. Yes, go on.
in this trailer, everyone is Venoms.
Everyone's Venoms, especially that horse.
That horse is a big old Venom.
That horse is a Venom. Michelle Williams is a Venom. Eddie Brock is a Venom. Benjamin, my favourite bit of the entire trailer was the bit at the start where he's trying to say, "We are Venom," intimidatingly. And Venom keeps getting too excited and going, "We're Venom!" Best
Yeah.
bit.
My ultimate favorite bit about this is that Tom Hardy is still giving it 100 fucking percent.
Never doesn't give it 100%, Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy just going for it. Loves this character, loves voicing the two of them together, has a great time acting what is assumedly a piece of styrofoam on a stick a lot of the time. Fucking loves it. This will
Loves
be
it.
interesting, Michael, because this is coming out the same time as the very serious kind of 1950s biker movie that's out soon. I think it's called
Oh, yeah.
Challengers or the Bike Riders or something. I don't know what it's called. But it's so interesting to see a man method acts to the point that he makes other people uncomfortable on set.
And they're arseholes.
And they're arseholes. But he just has fun doing this Venom thing every once in a while.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, God.
King Benjamin as
Go
someone
on.
whose job it is to basically ruin it any time you try to make a serious point. That "We Are Venom" moment just spoke to me. It spoke to me down to my very soul. It's like, "We are Venom!" Brilliant.
I think if you were to break down this episode as that dynamic, Michael, I would very much be the very
We are Venom!
tired Tom Hardy just being like, okay, can we just get through with the
We are
episode?
Venom!
I'm Michael.
I am Michael! I am Michael! Trailer for Alien Romulus!
Michael,
What is it?
speaking of parasitic host organisms that
Very
aren't any
good.
fun, fuck me, Michael. This is the most terrified I've been of aliens since I watched it from my stairs sneakily as a child while my father was watching it on the
very
television.
Good, Benjamin. I saw Aliens when I was about 12
Right.
and was probably slightly too young to watch it, but I did make it through. But it was one of the only times I've been scared in my life. I know we've talked about this on this podcast before, but I think being scared by a horror movie as a child creates horror movie fans because you're forever chasing that dragon of being frightened by media.
Or that alien.
Or that specific alien. And then there's been the trailer, Ben, and I'm pretty sure there's an alien in that man's chest. And I was like, this is what I said to myself. And I said it to you because you were watching me watching it. I said,
Yes.
no me gusta.
No me gusta. Michael, this is fucking great. This is how you do trailers.
Go on. I'd like to hear
It's
more.
been a while since we got a trailer
been a while.
that gives us a full picture of the world, but at the same time gives nothing away. Nothing.
Yeah, we still, well, not nothing.
Nothing.
We get
Michael.
the impression, nothing, okay. We get the impression that this is going to be about, are they refugees or stowaways?
Yeah, so I think they're sneaking off planet, Michael, and boy oh boy, are they going to regret that by the looks of this.
Yeah, because there's aliens on the ship, I reckon.
Yeah. Michael, there's a few things that have gone into this that make me really happy about it. One of them is that the man in charge of this, the man directing this whole thing is, I'm going to try and say his name here, Fede Alvarez? Could be
I
wrong.
think it's Fede.
Fede,
Or
okay.
Fede.
He's a Uruguayan filmmaker and probably most famous, Michael, for two big films. He did the Evil Dead reboot, not from Lee Cronin a couple of years ago, but the one in 2013 that rebooted the whole series, Michael. And as memory serves, very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Awful
very
film.
uncomfortable. Not as good as the Lee Cronin one, sadly.
Not as good as the Lee Cronin one, sadly. But don't worry, Michael, because he sharpened his craft and he also gave us Don't Breathe from 2016, where a bunch of thieves broke into a house, Michael, and they thought the old man was blind, but it turns out his hearing is excellent and he's a fucking serial killer.
Yeah, and he wants to impregnate that woman with a turkey baster.
Yeah, it's fucking awful. But Michael, that theme of forced
Actually, you know what?
impregnation and
You're right
not
there.
making any noise, Michael,
Oh.
seems to be something our good friend Alvarez enjoys because it's all there in that trailer. And Jesus Christ, was I uncomfortable with that one face hugger scene. Oh.
Go on, what made you specifically, Ben? Let's do a Freudian dive down into what made you uncomfortable there. Perhaps revealing something about your inner psyche that maybe I'll be able to use against you in the future.
Michael, as you know, you already have a small black book of my various phobias, but let's add to it.
Yeah.
Let's add to the pile.
Go on.
Yeah. Come here to me. Michael,
Hold
you
on,
know
let me
I
get-
hate parasites.
Let me get the book, Ben. Don't start.
Find something big and make a big thud there. Just-
Hold on. I've got the book.
Ah.
I don't know if you can hear that.
there. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if you enjoy this kind of high-level audio production and finishing, please give us a review or But come here to me. Parasites freak me out. I don't know where I got it from. I read too many books as a kid. You know those Discover the World books where they show you animals and what they do and stuff. And parasites just burrow their way into my psyche.
penis fish. Yeah.
Oh, the penis fish from Brazil, Michael. Awful
Mhm.
book. Awful book. Anyway, don't piss in rivers, lads. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't be pissing in rivers. But anyway, come here to me.
Go on.
This, Michael, does old school Alien very well. It's set in, I thought initially I was watching a Blade Runner trailer, Michael, because it has all the classic Ridley Scott speculative fiction tropes going on there. It's got floating cars, megalopolis cities, big burning fires in the night, great Blade Runner stuff all together. And then, Michael, it has my second favourite Ridley Scott sci-fi trope, which is bizarrely shuttered windows that let in streams of light in orange. Great stuff.
Yeah. Didn't Ridley Scott say that the Alien universe and the Blade Runner universe were the same universe? I think he did.
Fucking awful, if it is. No bueno. Look, Michael Fassbender's
Go on.
weird robot boy is very similar to a replicant. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of robot men up in space.
Yeah. Who knows? But, Michael, what gets really awful in this is they do a classic facehugger in the water, can't see it, and then it just jumps somebody and facehugs them. But we get to see it very close, and I didn't like it.
Leaps up at you.
Yeah. There's a phenomenal technique used in this trailer where there is what I can only describe as the squelching and thudding of meat used as the metronome to drive the tension. And when you first hear it, it wakes up the young woman of the trailer in her bed, and then it acts as a sound, and then it matches the fucking rib cage of that person who has a chest hugger. Face hugger.
A glowing chest hugger of some sort.
Oh,
Chest
it's
hugger,
a brand
did
new.
you say?
I said a chest hugger, yeah. I mean, they are pretty much hugging your chest. You know, it's happening.
Chest hugger.
But it
Is
matches
a chest
the
hugger not
heartbeat
a
of that
bra,
woman.
Ben? Are you not talking about a? You're not talking about a brassiere.
Is that old Dublin slang for a brassiere, is it?
I think it is. Put on the old chest hugger there.
On the old chest hugger there. Come here to me. Come here to me. Fucking
What is
very
it?
uncomfortable stuff. Fabulous bit of practical effects going on in it as well, Michael, by the looks of it. I would love to know if it maintains the level of tension throughout much of the film that we got in. Now, knowing Alvarez's work previously on the likes of Don't Breathe, he's very capable of maintaining a claustrophobic level of tension throughout a film. So here's fucking hoping.
Here's hoping, Midge. And not only that, he also as much as said that this is going to be like tonally between the two Alien and Aliens, which to me sounds like the perfect Aliens film.
That sounds like prime aliens to me, Mike.
Prime fucking Aliens. Benjamin, speaking
Yeah.
though of Prime, you have finally managed to get around to reading or watching Scavenger's Reign.
Michael, come here to me. Come here to me.
What?
The Discord, ladies and gentlemen,
love to hear
is
more.
where all of our fans,
No,
I say
wrong
fans
word.
loosely, because I don't think anyone likes us.
Collective,
think-
collective arch nemesis.
Yes, collected arch nemesis. They get in touch with us, Michael, and they remind us of things, and they give us reviews of things, and it's great. It's a nice way for us to keep tabs on our enemies. And as they say, Michael, keep your friends close, but your enemies on a Discord. And
Yeah, that is exactly what they say.
we actually got a great shout from Nine Wassies, long-term enemy of the podcast. He said that watched the first 2 episodes of Scavenger's Reign on Netflix. And I went, what do you mean Scavenger's Reign is on Netflix? That's a HBO show.
What's a HBO show doing on Netflix, Benjamin?
What's it doing on Netflix? Not explained, Michael, but it's there. Season 1 of Scavenger's Reign, all 12 episodes, Michael. Something that I have been dying to watch since I saw it trailerized back in the day, Michael, is out now on Netflix. And fuck me, it's fabulous.
Now hold on a second. Now hold on a second there. What's Scavenger's Reign? Did we talk about this?
So, Michael, we gave a little shout out to this a couple of months ago when we first saw trailers emerging for this. Scavenger's Reign is a very simple premise, Michael. There is some kind of space logistics operation happening. Something goes wrong, and people are stranded in a hostile territory.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it's an absolute classic, Michael. But what I really like about this is the story of how the incident happened that stranded them is told over the sequence of episodes, and we get right into the meat and potatoes of trying to survive on a planet where everything, Michael, is out to get you.
What's out to get you, for example?
Fungal organisms that want to use your body as a substrate.
This is not the plot of the film Prometheus.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. Yeah, or After Earth, starring noted thespian of our time, Jaden Smith.
Jaden Smith, yeah.
Yeah.
So why were we excited about this?
Well, Michael, because, and you as a recovered biologist might enjoy this, Michael.
Yes.
Number one, the art style is very reminiscent of Mobius and French comic books from the 1960s and 70s.
Oh, that's some of your favourites. The bande dessinée, as you say, for some reason.
Yes, for some bizarre reason I say bande dessinée.
Yeah, that's what he says. Even in normal conversation, that's how he pronounces it.
Oh no, I'm a big fan of bande dessinée. They're my favourite things.
Yeah.
But famously, Michael,
Yes.
in Mobius' bande dessinée,
You better keep it up.
he has a lot of very clean lines, solid colours, and bizarre megastructures. And one of the things that drew me to this instantly, Michael, is that Scavenger's Reign uses that aesthetic for biological structures.
Ooh.
And so these ordinary people find themselves stranded on this planet, Michael, and it goes into great detail explaining through visual means, not through murdering us with exposition or having a biologist be like, this is fascinating. Structures on Earth do it this way, but this one's doing the opposite. None of that. They just show us in quiet stills how the ecosystem operates. It's very Samurai Jack meets bande dessinée, and I love it. It's a fascinating storytelling method. Now, my favourite thing about this, Michael, is everything is awful in this ecosystem. It is an uncivilized world where a completely alien ecosystem has sprung up that is perfectly in balance, and it's very unlucky for the scavengers who arrive, the surviving humans, because they don't match the ecosystem. They are essentially an invasive species, and this world is almost like a living, breathing organism that is trying to get rid of them.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's not, I can't imagine it's great science in places, Michael, because sometimes it takes a massive leap because, certain things will cure other things that happen in the ecosystem, but it'll happen, spheres apart from each other. So I don't know how that evolutionarily works. It's like a dock leaf nettle situation here, where when you sting yourself with nettles, you take a look and find some dock leaves. But it'd be like if I stung myself with a nettle in Spain and found the corresponding dock leaf cure in Dublin. Sometimes the gap is just a bit much for me to fathom. Now, I am not a recovering biologist, so I would imagine, Michael, that I don't have a good insight on that.
Probably not, but I don't know if there is one.
It's a slowly told piece of speculative fiction, and it's so out there, Michael, that I can't imagine it's getting a sequel series. But the series that it has is fabulous. Nine Wassies hits the nail on the head when he says this is out there and mental, but it's good. Do you know what I mean?
What sort of situation is it? Is it like 9 short episodes, or is
it's 12 episodes, 12 30s.
12
30 minutes.
So about 6 hours, about 3 films. That sounds great.
Yeah, no, it's very good. Now, I've only midway through, Michael, but I can honestly say that it's a very solid series. It's exactly like picking up your classic, weird, old school sci-fi Day of the Triffids vibes. There's, Earth at the far-flung end of humanity kind of vibes. It's great. It's fabulous stuff. There's a robot that is slowly gaining sentience because he's been infected with fungal matter that's rewiring him as he goes. Fabulous. Yeah.
That sounds gross and fabulous.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Everything's trying to kill you, Michael. It's doing it in horrific ways. There's a plant that harvests your organic material, creates a clone of you. That clone carries fungal spores, and the purpose of that is for the animal it mimics to wander back into the herd, the original herd, spread the spore, and that becomes the new host body for a new plant to grow. It's awful.
Awful and fabulous. That sounds great.
Awful and fabulous. Yeah.
Awful and
So,
fabulous.
Scavenger's Reign. Good stuff, Michael. Thank you, Nine Wassies, for bringing it to our attention. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to bring our attention to stuff, we've got a Discord. It's linked below in the description.
Yeah, it better not be anything gross. Benjamin, speaking though of things that are gross, I read a comic book this week that I was mildly excited about and then greatly disappointed by. Did you like my "It better not be anything gross" song? You seem to have enjoyed that.
It was a great jingle. It was a eat anything gross. So fucking fab, Michael. No, let's just bask in that for a second.
Well, let's just bask in it a little second longer. It better
Great.
not be anything gross. If you remember back 15 to 20 years ago, one of my most exciting comic books of all time was the Ultimate Universe issue 1 of The Ultimates. A modern day, edgy, hardcore, extreme remake of the Avengers as the Ultimates, the no-nonsense government-sponsored super team. Great comic book, written by one of our favourites, Mark Millar, and not really one of my favourites. I think he's a bit of a loose unit. But Mark Millar, reined in by a big publisher, can actually do some pretty good superhero stuff because he can't be as fully gross as he will be on his own. Thankfully. And drawn by Brian Hitch, I believe. Wasn't it Brian Hitch? I think it
Cinematic
was.
comic extraordinaire.
Cinematic comics extraordinaire, Benjamin. I was a huge fan of Brian Hitch at that time, based on Stormwatch and The Authority, and I followed him to the Ultimates with glee. And sure, the Ultimates went some strange places and ended up being, all in all, not great. But that initial arc of putting together this superhero team, I've said it on this podcast 100 times, pretty much the inspiration for the MCU in terms of tone, character designs. It was very much prototypical. It felt like a movie. It felt like a movie pitch. And that's what Mark Millar does. He does comic books that often feel like movie or TV show pitches.
Yes.
And it was great. And I loved it. And it went weird and I stopped loving it. Fast forward, Benjamin, to the year of our Lord 2024. And Marvel have relaunched the old. That's now. That's the nowadays times. And Marvel have relaunched their Ultimate imprint, but with a different tack this time. It's not the real world, but superheroes are starting to appear for the first time. It's an offshoot of the 616 universe, in which the Maker, who's usually some sort of version of a Reed Richards, has stopped...
What a piece of work.
What an absolute piece of shit. But he has stopped superheroes coming to fruition. And I was super excited to read the first issue of the Ultimates in this new Ultimate Universe. And I tell you what, Ben, fucking rubbish. It's
no.
It's okay, so the art, I don't even remember who did the art, but the art is very Brian Hitch in style. There's very much a cinematic comic book look to the whole thing. But my problem with it is, unlike that season, that episode, what's the word I'm looking for? Unlike that issue of the Ultimates from 20 years ago, which was the ultimate intro to this new comic. Anyone could pick it up. The most exciting and interesting thing about this comic is the text box on the first page explaining the previously on.
That's not good.
No, it's really not good. This is like a take you by the hand and guide you through all of the worst mistakes you could make in enticing new readers to a comic. It opens by basically saying the maker created all of this incident, and then people started not becoming superheroes. But then young Howard Stark taught his son to be Tony Stark, and he discovered this, and then he sent Tony Stark forward in the future with some of the technology. But then the maker killed Howard Stark, and Tony Stark came back in time or something, and then they had a big fight, and Thor was injured, and they recovered Captain America, and Sif also joined the team. But then they went forward in time, and they also had Doctor Doom with them. But Doctor Doom in this world is also, he's Reed Richards. And they went forwards in time, and now they're gonna go and they're gonna do the Ultimates. I was like, what in the shit introduction to a comic is this? Am I supposed to have seen this? Has this all happened in Ultimate Spider-Man? It might have. When did this happen?
Yeah, so the continuity of the Ultimates universe is messy at the best times, but it does boil down to the maker each time. The maker is... Go on.
No, go on.
The maker is the original Reed Richards of the Ultimate Universe. So way back in 2000, when that was being written, when that Ultimates reboot that you were talking about came out, that was
Not the
then
Ultimates
designated...
reboot, the first Ultimates, yeah.
Sorry, the first Ultimates. That was Earth 1610. That's its designation. So the main Marvel continuity, if you like, is 616.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said.
The number we give it. And if anybody comes at me and says 616, I'll smack you. It's 616. Get over it. Stop.
Okay. All right.
The other one is Earth 1610. And in that universe, Michael, there's a Fantastic Four. There's an Avengers. They're called the Ultimates in that particular case. There's a Spider-Man. There's a Daredevil. There's, everything that you'd expect in 616. But it all went a bit tits up for our pal Reed Richards in Earth 1610.
Yeah. Ben, I'm going to cut across you because I don't... Where are we going with this? Why are we talking about the maker 20 years ago? What's that got to do with this?
Because he didn't exist 20 years ago. It's important to explain him now.
But my whole point is, this is the worst introduction to a new series to try and get new readers excited in a new book I have ever seen. Because I've been following this. I know who the maker is. I read the Ultimates in the early 2000s, and I've been reading Ultimate Spider-Man. Is there a new Ultimate X-Men? Like, all of the stuff that I've just described in this, it feels like it's not... This stuff isn't happening from that Earth 1610 Ultimates universe. This isn't a follow-on from that, I don't think. It's
not particularly, no.
What I'm getting at is, I don't have my ear to the ground 100% on comic books these days. And
okay.
I read 5 or 6 comic books a week, which is a lot more than the average person. But
yes,
I guess what my point is, it's a lot more than the average person, but still nowhere near enough to be able to pick up the first issue of a new series of the Ultimates, the Avengers of this universe, and not be going, what? What's going on?
Yeah. No, it's not great. Look, it's very confusing, Michael. It's Marvel.
Go on.
Bless them, right? Marvel has turned to Jonathan Hickman.
Yes.
And this is important. This matters. And they see Jonathan Hickman as their panacea, their cure-all for comics continuity, because Jonathan Hickman has what can only be described as the Midas touch in comic books terms. He's a very good writer. He understands how to reinvigorate properties that were otherwise flailing. He did it with Fantastic Four, cut his teeth with that. Then he got his hands on X-Men and began the era of Hoxpox, or House of X and Powers of X, and Krakoa, which ushered in what is arguably the most beloved X-Men comic book run of the last 10 years, I'd say. And helped clean that all up after the Inhuman mess that we don't talk about anymore. That we don't mention the Inhumans, Michael. Don't. Shush.
Ben, I'm rushing you now. Get to the point. What are you saying?
This all comes out of a bunch of titles that they gave over to him because they thought he could do the same thing with them. We got Ultimate Invasion, which is where this kind of maker taints the universe thing came from. And we got pre-solicited thing in November of last year, which was Ultimate Universe, which came from Jonathan Hickman as well. And it's all tied to a continuity that he created in the previous one, because that's how he handled the X-Men reboot, where they launched all titles simultaneously and did it that way. And they want to do that again and again because they think that's what people want. And so that's where that's come from. That's what I was getting at. It's a marketing tactic gone wrong. He didn't.
This was written
This
by
was written.
Derek Camp.
Yes. It wasn't written by Derek Camp, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So
Yeah,
it's written by Derek Camp. But it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
great apparently.
No, it's in that new Jonathan Hickman. The writing's not, the actual writing of the
Dennis
comic
Camp.
isn't atrocious.
Dennis Camp.
Excuse me. The actual writing of the comic isn't atrocious. It's just the worst possible introduction to a new comic you could possibly have. Anyway, that's all I have to say on that. Before we go down another fucking rabbit hole.
Well, Michael, but I'm all for rabbit holes. Give me more.
Well, Benjamin, you know what you might find down a rabbit hole?
Go on.
Some sort of spooky haunting.
Oh, some bloody spooky boy. A little beetle, perhaps, scurrying around in the dirt.
Very good.
Ooh.
Benjamin, in honor
Yes.
of Beetlejuice coming out in 4 months' time, we decided to do an Exhumed, one of our famous Exhumed episodes on the original 1988 of all years, Beetlejuice. And I
Fucking
watched it.
mental.
I saw Beetlejuice for the first time, Benjamin, about 15 years ago.
Oh.
And have only seen it once or twice in my entire life. So this was not a fresh experience for me, but it wasn't watching a film I'm intimately familiar with.
Yeah, that's completely fair, Michael. That's solid. Look, Beetlejuice is... I'm going to say it's a cult classic, Michael.
Go on.
But I don't think it is. I think Beetlejuice has a weird cultural touchstone for many people that kind of elevates it above cult classic status. I think a lot of people...
Cult classic. Hmm.
I think a lot of people have seen Beetlejuice. I think your parents probably know it as that weird film with Michael Keaton. Like, I do think people are aware of this thing in a way that's quite surprising. It has a lot of cultural relevance that kind of means that it's more than a cult classic. Do you know what I mean? Like, Edward Scissorhands is a cult classic. It's a weird fucking film. I don't think it stands on its own 2 legs if you're not a Tim Burton fan.
Gotcha. I get where you're coming from. Okay. Because my point would have been that Beetlejuice, for a character with a single film, Ben, in
Yeah.
which of the leads, he might have the least screen time.
About 15 minutes overall.
15 minutes max screen time. He has
Yeah.
way less screen time in this than either Gina Davis, legendary actress Gina Davis, or Gina Davis,
Davis, boys.
and young Alec Baldwin. He has a tiny fraction of the screen time of either of them, to the point where, if you renamed this movie, he wouldn't be the main character.
Not at all.
He's one of the problems they're dealing with.
Yeah, not at all.
He's not
You-
the main problem. Beetlejuice is not the plot of this film. He's not the protagonist or the antagonist. Ben, we got in trouble a few weeks ago for daring to call Furiosa a side character. I would say Beetlejuice is a side character in this film.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much spot on. I think that's yeah.
But having said that, one of the most instantly recognizable pop culture characters of all time.
Fucking insane.
It's absolutely crazy. And part of it is the movie itself, because the movie, Benjamin, this movie is great.
Fantastic. One of the most original strange things I've ever watched.
So much fun and so influential. That's the other thing. It's easy to watch this looking back at 1988 and look at things like the off-kilter angles of door frames and the Escher-esque patterns of stairways and stuff like that and go, oh yeah, I've seen stuff like this before. You've seen stuff like that before because of Beetlejuice.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the testing ground for that whole aesthetic. This is where it comes
That
from.
whole fucking aesthetic, Ben. The whole Nickelodeon kids are real monsters. Are real monsters doesn't exist without Beetlejuice.
Nope, not a thing.
And it is, to his credit, a wacky powerhouse performance from Michael Keaton with his limited
Yeah.
screen time.
It absolutely is. It's fucking insane piece of work from Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is, to use the parlance of the kids, Michael Keaton is him. Michael Keaton is that weird nut job actor who's fucked. I don't think Michael Keaton's acting a lot of the time. Like,
He's just fucked in the head, you reckon?
he's just fucked in the head, man. I've got some interesting facts about how he took this role
Oh,
coming up.
go on.
We'll talk about it as we go through, because we'll get into what Beetlejuice is and what he looks like and the aesthetic and all that kind of thing. But like, looking at this, Michael, this came out in 1988, right? And it had a very limited budget by today's standard, $15 million
15 million American dollars, Benjamin.
at the time. And it came back with 74 million worldwide.
That's all times return on investment.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Michael. Great gangbusters for 1988. And it is one of the most, as I said, one of the most original things I've ever seen, in that it never settles on a single tone.
No.
And what I mean by
wild.
that is, going into this film, Michael, it's sometimes a comedy, sometimes a rom-com, it's sometimes a full-on romance, it's sometimes a family drama, it's sometimes a grotesque horror spectacle. Like, there are
Sometimes a musical.
scenes, sometimes a musical. There are scenes in Beetlejuice that are genuinely harrowing. And I think it's the best movie Tim Burton has ever done. I think he peaked in 1988.
Controversial.
Just in terms of like a weird masterstroke of a film. This is before he gets bogged down in his own aesthetic. This is before he sits in that comfortable armchair of weird, angular, ugly, buggly-eyed, grim Victorian waifs. Like, he this is a great
yeah.
film.
Yeah, it is. It's
And
very
it's
good.
in-
I watched it with my lovely lady wife, Benjamin. It was her first time seeing it, and she absolutely loved it.
Because it's got something for everyone. It is a 1980s blockbuster, Michael. It's getting bums in seats. What it's doing. It's doing it all over the place. So the premise
Yeah.
in itself is fucked. Like,
Go
how
on.
this film comes to be is interesting for 1988, because we're introduced to Barbara and Adam Maitland, and they're just happy. They're two...
Gina Davis.
Yeah, it's Alec Baldwin of all people, Michael, and Gina Davis. And Alec Baldwin is there going, God, Barbara, I love you. And Barbara turns around and she's like, oh, I fucking love you too, mate. Oh, it's fucking great.
You too, you drongo.
Yeah, Drongo. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand what on earth is going on with my Gina Davis impression, you'll have to tune into an episode 2 episodes ago where we
Yeah.
introduced podcast favourite character, Gina fucking Davis.
Gina fucking
Anyway.
Davis, mate.
Those two characters are established. They have a perfect life, and they fucking die, Michael.
They die, yeah. Now, Ben, in the original script, they died much more grotesquely and terrifyingly.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Michael, because this is the other thing that I think makes this a great film, is Tim Burton didn't write it.
Oh, go on.
It's adapted essentially. So this is Tim Burton's second film as a director. His first was my brain's just fucked it.
Big Fish.
No, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
With Paul Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, so that did well. That was the kind of thing that prompted the studios to be like, let's give him another go at it. And then he was already in talks to direct Batman with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. They were not attached to the project at the time. And this was essentially his last hurdle for the studio to go, this guy can handle Batman. This guy can get Batman. So this was a bit of a test, if you want, by the studios. And this was back when studios took any kind of risk on anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Tim Burton at the time, and frustratingly for him, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is not a Tim Burton classic in the sense that it hints at that weird gothic undertone to the 1950s, but it never delivers it fully. And what it is, it's a weird adaptation of a favorite or of a genre, and it's, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And it got Tim Burton typecast into adventure scripts. So for a couple of years after 1985, when Pee-wee's Big Adventure comes out, all Tim Burton is getting onto his desk is Adventures with the Adventures of Does Big Adventure, because that's what people think he wants to make, and it's frustrating for him. And then, in the middle of all that, Michael, he gets this fucking horror script dumped on his desk, and it's from a guy called Michael McDowell. And Michael McDowell Andy McDowell, Michael, yeah. Andy McDowell was a novelist and a screenwriter, and he wrote primarily horror. And if you want to know how good this guy was or how esteemed he was by other writers, Stephen King once called him the finest writer of paperback originals in America today.
Get out of here.
Stephen, the maestro of horror himself, thought this guy gets it. This guy gets weird shit. He understands. And he originally penned the script for Beetlejuice. But his original script, Michael, is just a horror film. It's not comedic. It's not strange. It's just a straight up horror film. And in his version, in his treatment of it, Beetlejuice was a giant winged demon of Middle Eastern origin, as the fellow would say. And he wanted to murder Lydia's family and sleep with Lydia. Not marry her, sleep with her. Yeah.
Much creepier.
Yeah. He was a good old-fashioned Sumerian, sex and kill demon.
One of the best lads.
Yeah. And the treatment was, this is terrifying, ugly bugly. Now, Tim Burton went, I like it. I like the idea. Don't love the very serious tone. And he reworked it a little bit. Michael McDowell sold it on to the studio.
Can we make it mental?
Can we make it mental, please? That's what I'd like. And the studio said, do you know what? You absolutely can. Off you go. Give it a whirl.
Do whatever you want.
So that, that brings us into the world of this. And you get all these tones and all these ideas. And at the heart of it, Michael, is the subversion of the 1950s picket fence American dream. That's what it is. Barbara and Adam are the classic American couple living their best life, painting their white picket fences, and they have it ruined. And that's the premise of what's happening. And then Burton does this great thing where he parodies the 1990s, the kitsch art world, the postmodern cynicism of the 90s crashes into this American dream. And what we get is literally the past fighting against the present in the form of Barbara and Adam wanting this modern ick out of their home. And they're desperate.
And here's the fascinating thing about this. The modern ick is played fabulously by Catherine O'Hara and that man who looks a little bit like Charles Dance. But they...
Dietz.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Jeffrey Jones.
They are also not the antagonists. There are no real baddies in this. I would say the best performance in the... Okay, so Michael Keaton gives an incredibly wild performance as Beetlejuice. But I think this film hangs around the neck and broad shoulders of Catherine O'Hara. And I don't think she gets anywhere near enough credit for carrying this film.
She fucking nails this, Michael. She, interestingly, is the first person to sign on to the project. Tim Burton had a hard time convincing anyone else to get on the project until Catherine O'Hara took one look at the script and went, yep, love it, I'm in.
She just wanted to get out of the house away from that annoying son, though.
Probably. But that's a very good joke, Michael.
She was the mother in Home Alone as well.
She was a mother in Home Alone. She actually met her husband on the set, Michael. Her husband was one of the production designers on the set, and they've been together ever since. So what a fortuitous bit of choice for her.
Oh, for the first time, you mean? It wasn't just like, oh, hiya, and he was there.
Yeah, no, she met her husband for the first, her future husband for the first time on the set of Beetlejuice. But she does carry this film, Michael. She's
Benjamin.
fabulous.
Absolutely. She's incredible. And also the epitome of people in the 80s looking older than they really are. Catherine O'Hara is 34 in this film.
That's insane. That's insane.
That's insane. That is 8 years younger than me. It's so weird watching 80s films and seeing what's considered old.
Yeah, it's bizarre, Michael. It's bizarre. You in a wig now looks younger than Catherine O'Hara in the actual 80s.
Incredible. Catherine O'Hara now looks younger than Catherine O'Hara then. She's also Benjamin. And this is something I didn't know. Catherine O'Hara is a fabulous dancer.
Yes, very good. Very good.
Very, very good. In the iconic Day-O banana boat scene. The iconic scene of the movie. Catherine O'Hara can move.
She can. She's got a real boogie in her soul. It's a whole thing.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. But come here to me. That brings us on to some interesting stuff, Michael, because, you know, the other partnership that is spurred on by this is none other than Danny Elfman and Tim Burton's long-running relationship. This is their first time working together. Yeah, that's it, Michael. You got it. You got it, buddy. That was great. That's it. Okay. Okay. Now, Michael, I'm finished. You
There's
win.
an enormous delay on the line, Ben, which makes it even harder to do.
I don't know what the delay is. I don't know where that's come from.
There's an enormous delay. You actually stop speaking on your camera before the words come out.
That's a shame. That's not great.
You might have to edit around this a little bit. Just go
Yeah,
from
yeah.
where you were going before I did the Danny Elfman bit.
So this is Danny Elfman and Tim Burton's kind of first great melding of the music minds, as it were. And before this, Michael, Danny Elfman was in the band Oingo Boingo. Boom. Go Boingo, Michael, which famously sang Dead Man's Wedding. It's a dead man's wedding. Who could ask for more?
Never
Which
heard of it.
was a big hit for any fans of Chuck back in the day. But anyway, he was doing quite well in that band as a singer, and then he was brought in to do this, Michael. And one of the great issues he had was he was originally pitched the idea by Burton. He went away and came up with a score to try and guess what the tone would be of the film. And of course, as we've already discussed, Michael, this is a massive car crash of tones, themes, ideas. So he sent music back, and Tim Burton was just like, no, that's not right at all. And so
Yeah. Could you put a few bip-bip-boos in there?
yeah, essentially. But what he comes back with, Michael, is this anarchic kind of score that instantly sets the tone for this is a weird film. And this is the challenge that he's given. And the score of Beetlejuice does that. It gives you a comedic vibe, but also, it's a bit sinister and twisted at points, isn't it? It's a bit ugly boogly. And then, of course, there's the very famous use of two Harry Belafonte songs, which is Deo, which is that one. And then the other one, Jump in the Line, Rock Your Body on the Time. I don't know the
Your body in
full
time.
lyrics to that. But yeah, so those two are thrown in there as well, Michael.
Yeah.
And what we get is just a strange film. It's a wonderfully strange film.
It's great. It's an absolute flippin' banger of a film, mate. We watched it in my house last night. And I'll tell you what, there wasn't a mobile phone in anyone's hand.
That in itself is a win, Michael. That in itself is a win. But come here. I think it's only so long can you skirt around the real draw of this film, which is Michael Keaton being Michael Keaton.
Do go on.
So I did a bit of digging into how this came to be, and this is the film that put Michael Keaton and Tim Burton on the map. But they were, up until that point, known entities within Hollywood, but they weren't household names. Michael Keaton was catapulted by this film into A-list status, and he almost didn't take it. Michael Keaton is on record as having met Tim Burton, been pitched the film, to which he went, no, I'm not doing that. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And he was very clear. He liked Tim Burton. He liked his energy. He liked his whole vibe. Didn't understand the film. Didn't understand what was being
Bet you he's
pitched.
glad he did it, though.
Bet he fucking is. I bet you he is. But he eventually, Tim Burton went away, gathered a bit more of the cast, hammered out a few more of the details, and then he knew, having met Keaton and seen him in something else, he said, this is the guy. I want this guy to do this film. So he begged Keaton's agent to get him a second meeting. And Keaton said the only reason he gave it to him is because he liked him in the first meeting. And he came back, and there's a single detail that grabbed Keaton's attention. And this detail makes me think that Michael Keaton fucking nuts.
Is it that Tim Burton told him you'll just be grabbing ass the whole time?
No, Tim Burton said that Beetlejuice is a character that exists in all times. So he's from all timelines.
Oh, go on.
And this is the grain of madness that Michael Keaton latches onto in this film. And he says, okay, so he left that meeting, Michael. He rang someone that he worked with in a wardrobe department, and he said, hey, get me a bunch of male clothing from different eras and bring them to my hotel. And Michael Keaton sat down with this clothing designer and came up with the concept of the bizarre pinstripe costume that he wears in the film. And if you pay close attention to it, there's like a necktie from the Victorian era. There's suspenders he's wearing from like the 1940s. There's a whole bunch of anachronistic things going on in the costume. And then, because it was explained to him that he's this eternal decaying being that lives under the earth, a beetle essentially, he went to the prop department and the makeup department and he said, give me mold, give me decay. So that's why we get that really distinct. Michael Keaton isn't caked in white makeup to be a ghost. He's caked in mold and decay because he's essentially a corpse or a beetle being that's crawled up out of the earth. And then he said to the last of the departments, which was the hair department, he said, make it look like I stuck my finger in a socket. That's what I want. I want this live wire guy to exist. Tim Burton did not see any of this before the first day of filming. And Michael Keaton rocked out onto the stage, the sound stage, in full attire. And apparently Tim Burton just breathed this huge sigh of relief and went, oh, thank fuck, he gets it completely. And that's where they went from. This bizarre, like, inspiration for Michael Keaton. And he just creates this bizarre character.
He is such a gross character. He's horrible. He's lechy. He's kissing everyone. He's grabbing everyone on the ass. He's trying to hurt people. He's trying to marry a child. He's a real piece of shit, Beetlejuice. I love the fact that his name is the Star as well. The Star Betelgeuse or Beetlejuice or however the hell you want to pronounce it. Fabulous. And it's spelled the right way. In the movie, it's spelled the right way. And the name of the film spells it like the mispronunciation that he uses to tell people how to say it. Great little thing that we have to say or else we'll get comments. But Ben, horrible character. He's lechy, he's gross, he's untrustworthy, he probably fucking stinks, he's on the fags the whole time. Horrible character. Let's spin him off into children's entertainment.
So, this is the other bizarre thing that emerges from Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is a sensation. It does well. It does gangbusters. And it prompts Warner Brothers to create a series of children's cartoons from it. And it prompts Warner Brothers to create not one, not two, but 3 video games out. And it's insane. So we get an animated series that proves to be massively successful, Michael. It spawns 4 seasons of the animated series in which Beetlejuice is not the villain of the piece, but rather Lydia Deet's best friend. And they spend a lot of their time...
Yeah. Things get a bit mixed up.
Yeah, so they have to rewrite it, obviously, to match the vibe. And it belongs in that wonderful canon, Michael, of twisted children's cartoons from the late 80s, early 90s. It is the weird, freaky Ghostbusters. It's the real monsters. It's the Men in Black cartoon series from that time. It's just weird. It's uncomfortable. It's strange. It's definitely not for kids, and yet is targeted directly at them. It's that weird kind of cartoon vibe that goes on in this. It's massively successful. They spin off a bunch of children's toys from Kenner. They get their own action figures based on the cartoon. And Michael Keaton has been asked about this, and he thinks it's the strangest fucking thing that ever happened for his essentially live wire pervert character that he created, his cabaret monster. Yeah. It's bizarre. He said, I don't know what they were thinking with the merchandise, but kids shouldn't have Beetlejuice on their lunchbox. Like, it's
No,
not.
he's the worst.
He's
the worst.
It is interesting to see that, Michael. And now we're getting the sequel. We're going to see it come back. Yeah, look, it's a fabulous film that is all at once horrific and unsettling, but also hilarious in places and madcap in others. It's a truly unique 80s gem. And I really stand by the idea that it is Tim Burton's best film.
Give it a big old watch. It's got sandworms. It's got some June stuff in it for some reason.
Yeah, that's so the other world of this film is June. It's got big sand beasts, sandworms and
weird.
stuff.
It's June for some reason.
It's also
Very weird.
one of the few times, Michael,
Anyway, give it a watch.
where
It's fabulous.
yeah, it's fabulous. It's great stuff. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
if you thought this film was great and you'd like to discuss it with us, there's a few different ways you can do that. You can hop up onto the interwebs at www.seomrabeag.com, seomrabeag.com.
It means tiny room in Irish to some degree.
Sort of, a little bit, maybe. You can also find us on our other website for some reason, www.sherlockshalistenpodcast.acast.com.
Just don't say that 3 times in a row.
Or Mick will pop up behind you.
Nah.
You can also find us, ladies and gentlemen, on the regular interwebs and socials that you have. We're up on Instagram at Sure Look, Sure Listen Podcast. We are on TikTok at Sure Look, Sure Listen Podcast. But the best way, ladies and gentlemen, to get in touch with us is to go down to the Discord in the description. Hop up on it.
Hop up on it, click on the link and come and say hello and tell us what things we can watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had enough of us and you'd like to tune in next week, we're going to be taking a look at the wonderful world of nature red in tooth and claw. We're going to take a look at the worst ecosystems, planets and biomes that humans could find themselves in fiction, riffing off that theme that we looked at in Scavenger's Reign.
Oh, very exciting. That's like fun.
It does. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm off to go and call the wardrobe department and get a host of different clothing items from around time to make myself into a live wire pervert.
Oh, Benjamin, there was one thing that we forgot to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Day-o. Daylight come and we want to go home.
Good.